What up? What up? It's Ibn Webb, Ib Webb, Quran, the Sum here. Official Thanksgiving going down. Essex County edition style here. Got gentlemen I had a chance opportunity to play against for a few years here. Small town up in Jersey, but very family oriented, sports driven. Just a great town to live in. Steve Covello of Verona. I know he's done went on, done a few other things. He's even coaching now too. So love to hear something about that as well too. I know he was in a big game that just happened not too long ago as well too, as far as coaching game here. But just getting them on, like I said, it was great to just catch him and just hear him and just it'd be cool, like I said, chop it up, maybe learn a thing or two. I ain't know, but all good stuff though. So just hold on tight. Yeah, nah, good to see you, man. How you been?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Everything's good. Last couple of years were, a little rocky, which I'm sure I'll get into, once we start talking about it. And, or you want me to just start talking about it now?
Nah, we good, man. It's your show. I know how to flow with this. We good.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, and I like talking about it because number one, I'm not embarrassed about it, and number two, I'm hoping that because I'm going to start getting out on like the speaking circuit because I just feel sometimes, my journey growing up, not that I had a great childhood, nothing crazy like that. Sometimes people think like a good speaker is going to be, the one from like a broken home and, from the streets. Like my thing is more like, bro, we were younger, like looking different. There wasn't, you know what I'm saying? Like growing up with my birthmark on my lip,
Hmm.
I was a little bit of a target for
Right.
people. I didn't really understand it.
Hmm.
But that's, and I'll get back to that. But it was like that was the one thing that sort of got me towards sports where I was like, wait a minute, I can run 1,000 miles an hour and put
Hmm.
somebody on their ass and be applauded for it and not get in trouble for it. I
Yeah.
tell my players that all the time now. I said, what you kids do between the sidelines, if I was going to go out on my street and just earhole some person, I'm like, I'm going to jail for a couple of years.
That's right. That's right.
So and so getting back to the last couple of years, I was originally married. I was married for 10 years.
Okay.
I got divorced. I have three children. Macy Carmen's my oldest. Uh, Olivia Grace, who's in Florida right now playing soccer in a national tournament. She's a freshman. My oldest daughter, Macy, actually just made girls soccer all I think it was 13 group four.
Good
I'm
stuff.
very proud, very proud. My listen, I was never that parent. Like as a coach, or even as a parent, I was never that type to like tell my kids, this is what you're doing. This they just happen to, thank God, be very blessed athletically, but they also work very hard. And
Yes.
that has nothing to do. That's just who they are. They had that competitive edge since they were younger. And I was like, you know, because sometimes you've probably been around. There's a lot of kids, girls, boys that were very good athletes, but they just weren't competitors.
That's right. That's right.
Getting
It's a
involved with
big
sports
difference.
that was just like, eh. And then my younger one is Gianna Faith. She's 10 going on 11 in April.
Hmm.
And then so it was tough. It was very tough on my kids. I
Yeah.
was actually the head coach at Clifton at the time.
Hmm.
I mean, you talk about a rough year. It was a rough year. And believe me, anything I talk about or say is never like I'm never going to play the victim. Mine's more of like, hey, this was my situation. If you sort of relate to this, and maybe get something out of it in terms of like, you know, tools or mechanisms that I used, which weren't all great at the time. I mean, they weren't all great.
Hmm.
Getting divorced, three kids. It was 2014. We were like 0-6. And,
Yeah.
and I was getting like, I was hearing it from all over the place. Plus, I
So
was,
that's a football town too. Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm back there now.
Right. Right.
It was to put it in like layman's terms, like it was not an ideal situation
Hmm.
when you're talking about building a culture, coming off a couple seasons where we had some success. And I just said in an article a couple weeks ago in Clifton magazine, I said, I will take full 100% of the responsibility and the accountability. And my divorce and all the other personal bullshit that was going on has no, I just did not get the job done.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And as
Right.
tough as it was for me to like say that, it's the best way to do it, because if I'm not honest with myself, people are going to see right through it anyway. And that's not who I am as a man. It's not how I operate. So we were like 0-9 now, the second part of the season going into Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And I knew, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I was doing the best that I could, because in hindsight, I think most people would have probably resigned.
Mm-hmm.
But me, like the crazy part of me, and like my loyalty and my commitment to these kids and to the city and to the football program, which it's great tradition, the culture there now, like it's just always been a very popular program for all the right reasons, you know.
Right.
And I'm very happy that my best friend Ralph Sinkus, the head coach, brought me back this year. I knew I was going to get fired, and you know what? I needed that to happen, because that was sort of it was like the beginning of the end for me.
Okay.
And, we wound up winning on Thanksgiving. So we pulled out 1-9, but I wasn't going to stop fighting. I didn't want anybody, whether it was my family, friends, parents, administrators, I'm not going to stop fighting. You're either going to have to pull me out of the fight, or you're going to have to kill, you know what I'm saying? I'm just not going to stop.
Mm-hmm. Sound like that, definitely.
Yeah. And like I'll tell you what, in like my mind too, which was, everybody wants to be a part of a winner, right? Everybody wants to be like, when we won the States in 06, we had like 110 kids the next year.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we're in the age of like, it's going to come quick, we're going to win, blah, blah, blah. But my thing is this, and this might sound a little crazy, but like when you're going through a season like that, and you're just going through so much adversity, whether it's personal, professional, whatever the case may be, you take a look around as to who was where doing what at that point. And I fortunately got to see some of the men who kept coaching with me,
Mm-hmm.
and, never left my side. Those are the things I take for the rest of my life, because I'll never forget those.
Right.
I'll never forget those experiences. I used to talk to some of the kids on that team. And you know what? Yes, I had one guy in Clifton. Every time he wrote an article, like, after, it was the worst season, like 2 years after, like, okay, I get it. But like having to repeat it, it was getting to be a little too much. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I wound up getting fired. And the next couple of years, that was 2015. The following December, was December 17th, 2016. My older brother passed away tragically a week before Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was tough, man. It was tough. Like, we come from a generation where you're really not supposed to show your feelings. You weren't supposed to be sensitive. And, I was already at the tail end of just being gassed from my divorce, getting fired. And the other thing was just like on a light note, and God rest their souls, I love my parents, but living with them was probably the toughest part. You know what I'm saying? I'm out. I got 3 kids, a house. Now I'm back. It was brutal.
Yeah.
So my brother passed away. He was engaged, had I have 2 nieces, his 2 daughters, 44 years old, massive heart attack. And it shook my world, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? It shook my mother, it shook my father, it shook our whole entire family. And I didn't know how to handle it. I did not know how to handle it. But I will say this, a lot of my friends that were there and family were guys that I played ball with. It was 99% of my guys that were by my side and who have never left my side.
Mm-hmm.
All guys that I played ball with were all guys that I had met through college. And you talk about like that loyalty aspect of it. So, and here's the part that I'm not embarrassed about. Like, so you talk about like coping mechanisms, right?
Right.
I didn't really cope with it that well. You know what I'm saying? I wound up going away on vacation for a couple of weeks to get my head straight.
Mm-hmm.
When I was out of coaching, and over the next 6 months, a friend of mine died. My father died that June. Then another guy. Do you remember the kid Cammy Wallace from Verona? He was my age. Big guy with the beard. He had scruffy.
The Wallace name, it rings a bell. It rings a bell.
Baseball player. He wound up passing away after my father. So those next couple of years were just tough. They were just tough. And you know what? I put a lot of the work in. I had a lot of good support, and getting brought back to Clifton this year. Not a lot of guys get fired and then get brought back to that same program
Right.
a couple years. And I'll be quite honest with you. Like when Ralphie called me up, I got choked up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying I got choked up a little bit. Like, oh wow, like you think of me that much that you start going through so much stuff. After a while, you start thinking a little bit less of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Get humbled, and so I was back there. Then last November, my mother passed away, which every immediate member of my family. But the good thing is this: no matter how bad those times were, and they were bad, they were very, very bad.
Mm-hmm.
People talk about rock bottoms and desperation, and everybody wants to talk about mental health and awareness, depression, anxiety. That was all part of my bag. It still is. It's still a daily fight.
Mm-hmm.
But this past October, October 18th, I celebrated 4 years in sobriety.
Congrats, man.
Thank you. And then the following day, my wife and I, Deanna, our daughter Frankie Marie, was born on October 19th.
Mm-hmm.
So and then winning the state championship with Clifton this year and getting to that regional game. There were a couple times I had to take a step back this season and just take it all in, because I was like, this time 4 years ago, like there was no cause for celebration in my life.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, like in my childhood, sports saved me.
Yeah.
Sports came out and saved all the things I learned about growing up in Verona or at Monmouth or coaching came from sports.
Yeah.
Like,
That says a lot, Steve, man. I mean, even when we was chopping up over the phone, man, just the parallels, obviously, life and sports bring. There's so many parallels, so many.
It's crazy because when you called me up, I was like, oh, wow, I'm like, this is. So I went and I took a look at some of the guys that you interviewed.
That's cool.
Oh shit, John Alvarado. You're like, I knew like Johnny Alvarado was the same age as me.
Yeah. You guys were, I think, a year younger than me.
Yeah. And the scary thing is, I almost went to Montclair State. So imagine me, John Alvarado, Sinkyu, and like half those. It would have been crazier than it was.
Yeah.
It's all
interesting.
man.
Good stuff. Even so you grew up in Verona. Everything was Verona as a child?
I was in Montclair for about a year.
Okay.
And my parents, we lived down in an apartment on Brookfield. Mm-hmm. And my brother was a couple years older. And then we moved to Verona when I was like 77.
Okay.
Then from 77, elementary, middle, high school. Mm-hmm. And then when my father unfortunately wound up losing the house, he lost his job, like another, case of adversity, which as bad as that was one of the biggest and best learning lessons I ever had as a young man. And that was one of the things that, along with sports, was going out and hustling and getting a job. Mm-hmm. I've always, my whole entire adult life, it's either been painting or something. Like I used to have a painting company a couple years ago, which, was head coach. It was a lot, but went to elementary, played for the Verona Eagles, played all baseball, mm-hmm. and then middle school Eagles, and then Verona High School. And, I look back at my time in Verona and it was like, it seems so very long ago.
Yeah.
But it's not, like one of the things I've been preaching to any kids that I coach, good, bad, or indifferent, I tell them, like, one of my biggest mantras in coaching them is you can't take anything for granted, because mm-hmm. when you go through life and you've had unfortunate events happen that rip things away from you real quick, sometimes that turns the light on. We're like, oh, I was taking that for granted, maybe because now it's gone, and now I want it back. Mm-hmm. But I was afforded a lot of opportunities as a kid in Verona. Both my parents were married. My brother, who God rest his soul, was a couple years older than me. But mm-hmm. you go back to when we were young, right? So let's just say we were in football season in like 6th grade. I was still on like a Saturday going to playing stickball, going to playing kickball. We would walk with our hockey equipment across Bloomfield Avenue to go play the FN Brown kids or go play the Brookdale kids. Now I see like my kids and kids now, it's if it's not organized for you, you're not doing it.
Yeah.
You know, parents are scared to send their kids down to the elementary school because, you know, whatever the case may be. But again, go like that's those things, those little like events made me a tougher guy.
Hmm.
When I was crying and screaming and bitching and moaning, like at my mother to let me go with my brother, she knew what the end result was going to be. I was going to come home crying because I got my ass kicked.
That's right.
But at
Yeah.
the end of the day, that's what made me tougher.
Hmm.
Dealing with those older guys, and it wasn't just the physical abuse; it was the emotional abuse, it was the mental abuse. You know, like what happened to us when we were younger, like what people would call like joking around or busting chops, falls into that bullying category now.
Hmm.
Oh, and it's you know, as an educator and a coach, it's a very fine line between that
It
because
is. It
some
is.
words and terms and phrases we used as kids were just that. They were words, terms, and phrases. Now some of those, if you set, you'll get fired. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that's wrong or right. It's just the times have changed so much. You know what I'm saying? So it's what I wouldn't trade what I had growing up in Verona. Still, some of the guys I grew up with, I'm still very good friends with. Um,
Hmm.
Ronnie Newman, who was my neighbor, and me and him used to battle all the time. He was one of my best friends. And I'll tell you what, he's an administrator in Passaic right now, doing very well for himself. He's got
Okay.
a kids, very involved in soccer and baseball. You know, I would like all the guys that I came up with, all of my friends, thank God, everyone's doing well for themselves.
That's good. That's
You know what I'm
good.
saying?
Yeah.
Not like everybody. And here's the crazy shit. Like people, if they happen to listen to this, like some people hear, like, oh, Verona, it's a beautiful town. Listen, Verona is a very beautiful town. But the Verona in the 70s and the 80s, it was a little bit different, not in like a drastic way, but there just seemed to be a little bit more of a working, like blue collar back then.
Okay.
You know, like, you know, sometimes it's, you know, people out, it's Verona, like, listen, the Verona to me was, I'd be wearing a hillbilly shirt and people would be like, is that really your school name? I'm like, yeah. You know, the coolest guy out there. If you were from Verona and they knew you were a hillbilly, it was like, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
But you know, yeah, my you were a year ahead of me. I remember
Yeah.
we got
Yeah.
at Immaculate that your senior year. You guys beat us, and then senior year we played when Theobald was the quarterback. We
Yeah.
played on TV3.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah, I was you. You had a hell of a move that game,
Oh,
Steve.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was crazy. That was floating around. This. I want to say probably about almost 2 years ago, somebody from Immaculate sent that to me. That one clip. It was yeah, Scott. Yeah, Scott. You pretty much just left his ankles on the ground, man. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So nah. Somebody sent that around. I was like, yeah, I don't know if
You
they
know,
hit Scott with this, but yeah,
now who was that? Scott
Scott Wolf.
Scott Wolf. Now there was another guy that was on that team I ran into years ago. I think he's a cop in Orange now.
Brian Mooney.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mooney.
yeah, yeah. We got your same clip. Me and Brian. The same. Yeah, Brian. Yeah, he's the captain. Yeah, captain down there, at the police force. Yeah,
Nice. And that's what I'm
yeah,
saying. Dude, like a lot of people I've run into like over my life that I knew, like I'll be with my daughters wherever, like, hey,
yeah.
Coach Covello, Mr. Covello, who's that? I'm like, oh, I played against him in high school. I coached against him. Like, and like that's the beauty of like sports too, is the networking
Oh
and
yeah,
and the
yeah.
people you
That's right.
meet, especially
That's
whether
right.
it's like, and that's the one reason, even that I'm still in Clifton after 23 years, I could say this with my heart and soul. Nobody spends 23 years of a career in a city or a district that they don't like.
Right.
I'm there because I love that city. I'm technically, some grown people might get mad at me for saying this, but it's just the truth. I'm more of a Clifton guy than I am a Verona guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like my whole entire career, I mean, the players over there, and I'm talking players from like beginning to end, like whether it was a losing seat, all these kids were just great kids. They came from great families. Their parents, it's like salt of the earth over there.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's salt of the earth, and that's why I started there. And I don't foresee myself going anywhere. to be quite honest with you. So, and I probably got about another, well, who knows now after my divorce, probably another 50 years I'll be working.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of that district, though. That's the
Nah.
beauty of that district.
Yeah. It's kind of like when no,
Yeah,
with
exactly.
with anything. Yeah. With anything. Yeah. Man.
And like, Gad,
No. Please go.
and that was like that's in my the other thing is too, like when I go back to high school, I think about like academics, right? Like I look back to how ignorant I was in terms of
Yeah.
how important education was. And I would never, my parents were very involved. Like the one thing my father preached to my brother and I was no matter what, you're getting a college education. Every family has their own thing,
Right.
you
Right.
might get a son in construction or a business, whatever the case may be. I honestly wish that's the one thing, people always ask, what's the one thing you would change? I really would have concentrated or put much more effort into my academics than I did the extracurriculars. You know what I'm saying? Like the extracurriculars and going out and partying, like back then, like thought that was the right thing to do. And now looking back, what I thought was the right thing to do years ago almost killed me in my adult life. Now, if I put all that, effort into studying and getting good grades and, worrying about my class rank and SATs, and like that's the ironic thing. Me and Ralph Sinkyu, the first time we met was at one of those SAT tutoring classes down in Clifton, and it was like one of like a synagogue basement or whatever. But I look back to it, it was a joke. You know what I'm saying? And don't forget, back then you needed a 2.0 and a 700.
700. Yeah.
Which was basically like breathing on your own and being able to write your name down,
Mm-hmm.
which, and thank God, because if I didn't go to college, I don't know. We're definitely not having this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And I guarantee there's a lot of dudes out there who didn't really value education, but played football in college. And that was the one thing that saved them.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So that if they didn't have a sport, especially football, would have been running down that wrong path. I know a bunch of guys,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's why I was just very, very, very thankful. My parents were always, and my parents never forced us to play sports. My brother, unfortunately, he was born with a congenital birth defect on his kidney, had to get his kidney taken out at birth.
Okay.
And my parents went through a little bit of a rough, like as a parent myself of 4 children, like the health of your child's a very, very important thing. It's a stressful thing. My brother had his kidney taken out. I was born with the birthmark. And like my parents, back then, nobody knew what the hell this stuff was.
Yes.
Right. My brother, who was probably just as good or a better athlete than me, was told his freshman year, he was a great football player, he wasn't cleared to play because he only had one kidney. And that crushed him.
I can imagine at that age. Yeah, absolutely. In that point in his life.
14, 15 years old, you have all your friends, your name's out there, and then all of a sudden, boom. And then, and that sort of affected my brother's path down the road. I mean, he was successful, but like, when he didn't have the sports, like I said before, the sports brings all those life skills.
Yes.
The organization, the regiment, the schedule, the responsibility, time management, all that stuff. My brother didn't have that no more. So he sort of went off and did what he had to do. And, thank God he came back around.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I listen, like, speaking of my brother, like that man, he lived a good life. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes people in like my grieving about that guy, as tough as it still is, I always have to look at, he lived 44 years. He had 2 beautiful children. His fiance, my sister-in-law, Gina, you know what I'm saying? So that's one of the parts of my grieving process, that my man lived a good life. And it helps me to, get on that path towards healing during a death. But my brother was always, he was so involved in my sports that every morning I would come down on like a Saturday morning before I left, there'd always be that note, Steve-O, get it today. Me and Daddy are going to be there. Like, and the crazy thing is his best friend mentioned that in his eulogy at my brother's funeral.
Mm.
Beautiful thing. It was a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. And my father, my brother, like, because they knew I was a little crazy. They knew I was a little wild. But once I got down to Monmouth, they were sort of like, okay, this is good. We know where he's at. He's playing football. And, that was probably one of my best moves in my career was going to Monmouth.
Yeah. And then even real quick with Monmouth, they just started
Yeah.
probably a year or two in when you got there, right? The program.
Her.
Yeah.
And and that was one of the things that sort of attracted me to Monmouth was it was their first year of football,
Mm-hmm.
and it was new. It wasn't far from home,
Mm-hmm.
and quite honestly, I didn't get into Montclair State because my grades weren't that good. Even on a special admit, I couldn't get it. And my other recruiting weren't like places I wanted to go. So I was like, I got recruited by Wagner too. And
Okay.
I went out there for a visit, and it was different. I wasn't used to the whole Staten Island, Brooklyn thing at that point. Getting back to the SATs, what was the guy's name? Pete Prisbrowski, who was offensive coordinator, was like, Steve, I think we want you to take the SATs again. I said, Coach, I'm like, I've taken them 6 times. I haven't broken an 800 yet. Like, what do you want from me?
Mm-hmm.
So he made like a comment like, well, you can come to Wagner and be the hammer or go to Monmouth and be the nail. I said, see you. My whole career, we wound up beating Wagner 4 times and losing to him 6. So,
Right. Even in your first year of the program beating them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, when I went down there, and this is something for like a lot of parents or kids that they probably don't take into consideration with recruiting in college and this and that. Nobody wants to talk about the emotional and the psychological and the mental part of a young man going away from home,
Mm-hmm.
surrounded by strangers, whether they're good athletes or not. It was weird being away from home for the first time.
Yeah.
And I saw a couple guys that I wound up talking to wind up leaving because they were uncomfortable. Now I could understand how that felt. And the day my parents dropped me off, my father got choked up, which I wasn't used to seeing. My mother started crying like 6 months before I even got dropped
Oh, yeah,
off.
you got there. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was 3 counties away, and that was one of the things with Mom too. Like, I was 45 minutes away,
Mm-hmm.
meaning I could come home on a Sunday, bring some clothes, have some macaroni with my family, and be back by 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down there after the first couple of weeks. I was starting at corner actually, and the best was when I went down the first day. I was standing in the offensive line because I thought I got recruited to play quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm waiting. I said, hey, Coach, how you doing? He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, well, I'm getting my playbook. He goes, no, you're down there. I'm like, no, I'm here to play quarterback. He said, cornerback down there. So I was like, whatever. And I just got done talking to somebody about this yesterday. The first week that I was there with Kevin Callahan and Andy Baldwick and Lee Linton and all these guys, the coaches down there, I learned more football in a matter of 1 week from these guys. And I'm talking like A to Z. I'm talking like from your individual position, stance starts, all the breaks, to your group, like how defensive coverages work, to motion adjustments, to running a coverage more than just cover 3, because everybody was running a cover 3 back then. Everybody's running a cover 3. And if you had great athletes, you were running a cover 1.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what turned the light bulb on in my head. I was like, wow. And I even said it in an article, like, remember like the Star Ledger used to do like articles about local colleges still.
Right.
Star Ledger was good. Now they want you to pay $75 for their online thing.
Yeah, crazy. I just saw that today because I just saw that.
Actually, like, you know what? I get it. Listen, I'm a paper guy. I love to read the paper.
Mm-hmm.
$75, I'm not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do it. So I remember one of my quotes was, I learned more football in like a week or 2 that I've been here. And then this is where everything got great, was like, I started making my friends, all guys that had the same stuff in common.
Mm-hmm.
And I hung out with a lot of North Jersey guys because down there, I wasn't too familiar with like South Jersey. I wasn't too familiar with like all the way down south. So I stuck with my own. I stuck with Mike James from went to Clifford Scott, whose brother played at St. Peter's Prep. Willie Holder, who's a fireman in West Orange from Orange.
Mm-hmm.
Vic Cintron, who was my roommate from Bloomfield, wrestler. I stuck with all the Essex County guys.
Yeah.
And you know, like the funny thing is that year, every Essex County guy that was down there started on defense.
Really?
So
Yeah.
Essex County like was very well represented down there.
Mm.
But you know, and then the season started. We traveled up to Stonehill, which is like in I think Massachusetts, Connecticut, somewhere up there.
Mm-hmm.
First hit of my first college career, I snapped my scapula in half. I hit a kid coming across the middle. Bang! I felt it, and there was a turning point right there because you know I'm away from home. I got an arm in a sling. I'm going to games. There's a new crowd. Like people, I'm going crazy, and I felt like, wow, like I'm missing out on all this. And you know, I started questioning like, how important is this to me? And then that next year, I worked my ass off. Once I got everything physical therapy, and then I came back the following year. I wound up getting that year back because of that hardship.
They did. Okay. Okay.
10% of the season, and I started every other year, and I was captain my senior year with Danny Sabella, who's the head coach up at Don Bosco.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we played. Let me tell you something. Towards like Coach Callahan and that program did a great job of layering like their levels of competition.
Mm-hmm.
My senior year, we wound up playing New Haven when Tony Sperano was there.
Oh yeah, they running all over the place. Yeah.
I remember that game plan. Coach Cal comes in. He's like, all right, we have 9 formation checks. And we used to do formation checks a lot. But he goes, well, here's the catch. They run a no huddle run and shoot.
Yeah.
Remember the first play where I'm playing strong safety, and they used to, and we were running like a little bit of cover 2, playing it up. See the number 2 going. I go to get him. Bang, ear hole, touchdown. Like, those guys run a different level. Those guys run a different level. Wayne Johnson was on that team. He was a St. Mary's guy. There was a couple Jersey guys on there.
Right.
They wound up playing Northern Colorado in the Division II National Championship game that year.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, we also went out to Dayton and played, which was, let me tell you something. Ohio football is no joke.
Yeah, and
It is no joke. And that weekend, I'm pretty sure Penn State was playing Ohio State, and like you couldn't get hotels within like 50, 60 miles. Played Dayton, and then you know we wound up winning. I think we were co-conference champs that year or whatever. But coming out of Monmouth, I knew I wanted to coach.
You did know that just based on even that first week experience?
That was, you know what, I remember when I got called into a counselor's office. She's like, so what are you doing with your major? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, what do you want to do when you get older? I'm like, I don't know. So I like toyed around with like psychology. And then one time I did like a quick practicum at an elementary school in like Ocean Township. I go there and the teacher's like, well, we're going out for recess right now. Bro, like another 10 seconds. I'm playing kickball with these kids, running around like a maniac. And like the one lady comes over, she goes, oh my God, these kids love you. You got to come back. I'm like, I could actually get paid for hanging out with kids all day and coaching football. And that was it. I was signed, sealed, deliver after that, you know, and like, I do kick myself in the ass a little bit because I honestly wish I knew a little bit more about a grad assistantship, like at a university.
What you're saying for the college level?
Yeah, because, you know, I was coming out of Monmouth and I didn't really have that much debt because I got money to play a little bit, but it was almost like I just wanted to get back home and start my career.
Okay.
You know, which, you know, coaching was my first priority though, you know, like that was the weird thing. And then that's, you know, I sort of put things into perspective. Like the more important thing is the teaching, but it's like coaching and teaching to me are the same things. If I'm teaching a kid how to do a 2-step equation, it's the same thing as teaching a kid how to line up in the coverage, what his footwork's going to be and what his responsibilities are, run to, run away, pass to, pass. it's the same thing for me. So I wound up getting hired in Clifton in '99.
Mm-hmm.
It was funny. Remember call waiting, right? You mentioned call waiting.
Yeah, the phone. Yeah.
And a best friend of mine, Chris Giacchetto, who was another Verona guy. He played football and baseball.
I know that name.
He played down at Rutgers for Freddie Hill. His dad got me an interview in Carteret. And the same day Carteret called me up, there was like, I said, can you hold on for a second? It was Clifton. So I had like the two jobs on the phone that I wound up taking Clifton because my reasoning was, I don't know if I wanted to get on the turnpike every day and drive down to Carteret.
Mm-hmm.
So I started my career in Clifton in '99, and I'm in my 23rd year there now.
Yeah.
Coaching wise, I started out at Bayonne when Jamal Lord was there, who played out in Nebraska with John Rickard.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for 2 years, took a year off. I was in Kearney in '03.
On the Kearney, okay.
But here's the crazy part. Like that year that program got like moved to JV, and I don't really talk about politics or anybody else's business, but those kids were ready to play football. There was no reason that season should have been canceled. And, so I started coaching basketball and softball in Clifton.
Mm-hmm.
And, just to get my foot in the door, just to get out there and just be with the kids and whatever the case may be, middle school. So in '04, Ron Anello gets hired in Clifton, and I had just taken a job in Belleville. And I get a phone call, and someone's like, "Oh, Coach Anello wants to talk." I was just at his retirement dinner the other night. Now he had my whole family's from Montclair. My father played for Clary Anderson. My mother's side, they're all Montclair people. He winds up hiring me, and by 2006, after we went 3-3, he made me the defensive coordinator. And that was the year we went 6-0, won the Section 1 Group 4 state championship. And that's sort of how I made my bones. Like I always, in my mind, I was always ready to be a coordinator.
Okay.
I had my career down like head coach 25, AD by 30, VP. I mean, has it worked out like that? No, but you know what? There's still a chance for it to work out like that.
That's right.
I got my master's that year in administration at Montclair State. And then, the crazy part about winning the state championship that quick was you never wanted to settle for anything less than that. You get to that echelon, you get that level, walking out of Giant Stadium, huge crowd, Saturday night, like, come on, I still get chills thinking about that night, and then I had another opportunity to do it at Rutgers. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll still take Giant Stadium over Rutgers, but it was still like for a high school kid to just to get on the field. Is something like I talk about those opportunities. I told these kids, no matter what, nobody could ever take this away from you. And even with this regional championship game now, a lot of coaches and a lot of players aren't even getting to a sectional final, let alone a regional final.
Yes.
Like those are the things that, as a young player or man, you get older, you look back and being like, oh, wow, like that was a huge opportunity. And no matter where Clifton played in like a playoff, we always had a great following. Always had a great following. And then I kept coaching from '04. Coach Anello wound up leaving and going to Ramapo as the AD. He landed a nice job up at Ramapo. And I'm like, you know what? Here's where some people might think my downfall is, but I am so big on loyalty and the kids in the program in Clifton. Some of the coaches talked. We said Clifton's a very tough place to go into if you don't know much about it. I was there for a couple of years. It took me about 10 years to get used to the whole entire layout.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And when I put in for the job, I was so excited that I might be a head coach that I wasn't thinking about anything else. You know what I'm saying? Like I just had my third daughter, Gianna. It was a crazy time. I got hired late. We got started late, but we wound up winning. We went 6-4 that year.
Mm-hmm.
6-4 my first year. We beat Ridgewood at home on a Friday night, and then we wound up losing to Fairlawn the following week. It was just a crazy season. But like so week 8, which is the cutoff, we pulled Bosco as our week 8 game. It was like,
Yeah.
listen, I'm not scared to play anybody, but like I'm a realist. Give
Mm-hmm.
us a shot at least. Give us the best public school you have, and just give us a shot. Like that's why I'm sort of glad they changed up the whole format, because you know what? I never complain about the Catholic schools. I would love to play them.
Mm-hmm.
But in week 8, when we had a nice season and we could get into the public school playoffs, you see what I'm trying to say? It's just, I don't want to come off like a little baby, but it's just different. I want to try. Any coach is going to want to put his kids in the best position possible. That's
right.
And then for the next couple of years, it's crazy. In 2012 and 2014, like we went like 4-6, 2-8, but like 70-80% of those games were like we lost at like right at the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And again, when I came back in 14, there was a couple things personally that were brewing that, if I had made the right decision of maybe resigning back then, I don't think I would have been happy with myself. You know what I'm saying? Because my whole like character is, like I said earlier, I'm going to keep fighting until I can't fight anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Kids who I'm responsible for, and telling them to sell out, be tough, stay committed, be dedicated, do the right thing. But I'm not doing it. You know what I'm saying? What's the message that's being sent out there? So, like I said before, I got fired in 2000, I think it was 15, that January. And it was tough. But then, like I said earlier, all those things that happened, I never thought I was bouncing back from that. Like I didn't, when I was like really, really, really down and out, and like really like isolating myself from the world, friends included, I just didn't, I was watching my mother go through her own thing where, and I used to tell my mother, I'm like, Buns, her name was Bunny, but really it was, everybody called her Bunny. I said, Buns, I said, on paper, I said, son, husband, and brother, father are a little bit, that looks a little bit worse.
Mm-hmm.
My mother, who was a very, very, very tough individual, very tough. If they had female sports or like all state back in the 60s at Montclair High School, she would have been all sport and a sport or two. She was a very, very, very good athlete.
Yeah.
But just a great woman too. You know what I'm saying? Like for her, you had to be crazy to raise me and my brother, and to then you throw my father in the mix. At 37 Morningside. But so then, like right now, I mean, I got remarried. We were supposed to get married. The pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got married last April at the Pleasantdale, my wife Deanna and I. And we're living up in Roseland now, which is it's the best kept secret in Essex County.
Roseland, yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you why I do. We looked in Verona, right? Yeah, they want 16,000. Like it was just like no way.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice, it's quiet, nobody bothers us. Like I said, we named my daughter after my brother and my father, whose names were Frank. So her name's Frankie Marie Covello. So. And I just think this whole pandemic has made people crazy, man. Thank God for sports.
Yeah, they opened back. Yeah, definitely.
Could you imagine if we were in high school in like the early 90s and they were like, oh, your season's canceled?
Yeah, all hell would have broke loose out here.
There would have been a riot.
Yeah.
There would have been an absolute riot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's crazy. Like I started in Essex County. I was in Monmouth and Hudson for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
I just always, I don't know, man. I just always felt home in Essex.
Yes.
Home in Essex County. Like, even like, you look at like Essex County over like 20, 30 years, like you're talking some, like even like the Super Essex Conference, right? Now that Super Essex Conference.
Yeah, what you think about that? I know you kind of alluded to them breaking everything up.
I think it's great.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's great. Actually, you know what? I got to give Mike Sylvia, the head girls soccer coach at Kearney High School, a little bit of airtime because Kearney was playing in the Hudson County League,
Okay.
and they win the Hudson County Championship. And this is no disrespect to any body team coach or town. No, his goal was to get these players in Kearney ready for the playoffs because a couple of years ago their schedule wasn't too tough. They get up and play like a decent Ridgewood team and got beat 6-1. You know what I'm saying? Like, you look at us this year, Clifton, right? Football, we were battle tested by the time we got into the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? And like, even like against a team like Phillipsburg was a battle tested team. Like, that was probably one of the more physical games we had this year. Any good coach is going to tell you, and this is what I didn't like years ago, because everybody wanted like an easy path into the playoffs, and then they were getting smashed
when they got there. Yeah.
That's my point. Like, what do you want to be, the best of the stinkies, and then you go start playing the good teams, and then you get beat up? So I was very impressed that my daughter's coach basically got out of that Hudson County League, Super Essex, Montclair, West Orange, Livingston, like West Essex. And I think it helped them in terms of getting them ready, because they wound up playing West Orange in the playoffs and wound up losing 1-0. But the beautiful thing about the season was, like, I got my older daughter, Macy, and Olivia. Olivia's a freshman. Those two played varsity soccer together. So it was pretty cool to see two Covellos on the same field at once.
Yeah, that had to be exciting, man. As a dad watching them, man, how are you, man? You probably more nervous for them than
You know what, Ibn? It's funny you ask, because my daughter Macy, the first time she went and like played, and listen, I knew nothing about soccer. I knew nothing about it. The first time I was up at like the Teaneck Armory, where they have like all these crazy tournaments, and I was getting nervous, like, how am I going to be? I mean, my daughter was maybe like 6 or 7 at the time, and I'm not going to lie, this kid started playing. The butterflies I was feeling were like bad, but I couldn't like let anything out of the bag.
Yeah, you still got to play cool.
Oh, yeah. But like, even now when I go and see them play, I don't think my kids will ever understand like the intensity I still have for when they're playing. Now, listen, no matter where they are, what they're doing, they're my children. Like, one time my daughter got an elbow thrown at her at a Christmas tournament. Like, I caught myself standing up, like getting like a little heated, but my daughters are very blessed in the fact that they love to win.
Yes.
They work to win. They don't like losing. And you know what? I'll never change that about them. I'm not going to be like, no, accept losing. You can learn from it, but it's like the old adage, like, I hate losing more than I love winning. It's the truth. Truth. And now, I just had it's all girls around here. It's all estrogen in the Covello house.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you something. I'm blessed, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Nah, definitely with the girls, the wife, everything. Like, it's just my wife and my daughter, so I get it. My stepson, he's gone and doing his thing, so I get it with the whole estrogen thing.
I even have a female dog. I can't even get a dog with testicles around here.
Oh man. So yeah, sometimes going in the field does break that monotony up a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. It does.
Now with sports, I mean, obviously you spent your life around it, man. Like, what's giving you that's been with you to this day, that's stuck with you to this day?
That's a good question. I would just say, the one thing with sports, it's determination to me. It's like that, me and Ralphie always used to say this phrase, like, there's nothing better than imposing your will on another man. Like, because when you do that in a sport or even in life, what can you say to that? Like, and like, even with sports, like even in my own career, like, you never stop wanting to win. That's it. Like, and that's why I think a couple of years ago, when I was in that real bad, dark spot, like, I almost started viewing things as almost like an actual game. Like Steve-O, you're either going to fight back and win, or you're going to give up and you're going to lose. So
Mm-hmm.
every time I was in like, and when things were bad, I'm like, I'm not losing right now. I'm not losing because, like I tell my players all the time, you have two choices. You either keep fighting or you quit. And the sad thing is sometimes in this world, you have people that are just okay with quitting because they don't want to go through those uncomfortable emotions. You know,
Right.
me growing up looking different and playing sports, like my life's like a dictionary of awkward and uncomfortable situations to like to the point where I don't even feel awkward or uncomfortable anymore because I think I like wore out the welcome of like awkward and uncomfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing too. Sports in life, when you're in a pressure situation, there's no class you could take for that. The only
No.
experience you're going to get that type of like anxiety is from sports. You're up 3-2, full count, playoff game on the line, bang, you hit on. And that carries over into the real world. Like, you know, like to me, and I'm not saying people who don't play sports don't get these things, but when you start at a 6, 7 years old and you're around older kids who are showing you the way and older kids are showing that, then you become accustomed to that ritual of how things are done. And that's how cultures get built in towns. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I know Verona we have the worst mascot name in America. But I will say this wholeheartedly, that's one of the best football cultures around.
Oh yeah. Oh
You
yeah.
know what I'm
Most
saying?
definitely, man. And you guys, I think wasn't my freshman year, so you eighth graders. I think they just joined that Colonial Hills
That's
conference.
right. That was
They
Mark D'Angelo, Frankie
yeah,
DiGiacomo.
the Giacomo, those guys, and basketball was Mike Fader.
Yeah, they were good
Yeah,
that year.
yeah,
They
yeah,
were good
yeah,
that year. I mean,
yeah.
you look like in like the one thing Verona has, and I've always said this in coaching is your high school program. Take a look at your feeder program. That's going to tell you where you're going to be the next couple of years.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and like the thing about Verona is, and this is a proven fact in my career. Anytime teams have stayed together and went to high school together, they won. In '06, the OC at Clifton right now, Anthony Giordano, was the quarterback on our '06 team, right?
Hmm.
Those guys started the Junior Mustangs together. They finished together in Clifton, state championship. These kids this year, they all stayed in Clifton. And this team I was with this year, they were different level this year.
Nah,
They
that's
were
a good
different level.
point. Good question. How hard has it been? I mean, obviously keeping. I mean, again, every town's gonna have their kids that just leaves and go to these parochials. Has it gotten worse over the years? Maybe for like a town like Clifton, or
You know what? That was the one thing about Clifton, I wasn't as an assistant coach. I wasn't exposed to it
hmm
or didn't know too much about it. But yeah, it got bad after a while.
hmm
You know, I guess I could tell this one story. I'm not going to mention what the name of the player was, but like I almost felt like I was trying to negotiate for a player I never seen play on a varsity football field.
hmm
You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe that was one of my downfalls. Like, I'm not going to go and give one father and mother special attention because I think the kid. What message am I sending out to the rest of the parents? You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not going to sell my soul for a 14-year-old kid. You know what I'm saying? That's just me. And people might see this and be like, well, that's why he got fired. Well, okay, but I still have my principles. You know,
right,
like
that's right.
I I would never want my children, like my daughter, my older ones, coming up on like that recruiting and all that other stuff. But like me being in the game for so many years, I reached out to the AD, the soccer coach. Obviously, my ex-wife will be involved, but I want everybody involved because I want honesty too. Like if my
Hmm.
daughter's like, "Oh, well, I want to play here," and then she can't play there, I don't want anybody telling her, "Oh no, no." Let's just keep everything open and honest. Like that
Hmm.
whole recruiting thing, I don't know how much honesty is involved with it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And again, it's not my business. Has it affected me as a coach here and there?
Hmm.
Um, Clifton, it was more tech, Passaic County Tech.
Okay.
Um, because some of the parents and everybody comes up with these wild stories like Clifton High School's. Clifton High School is one of the better high schools in the area.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, there's 900 kids in the class. Like, you know, you look at like the top 200, there's always kids going Ivy League. Like, there's a lot of great things coming out of Clifton. The education, the families, the sports. Sometimes it gets a bad name because people are ignorant and they know nothing about it. They're just intimidated because it's a very diverse district and they have no idea about the diversity.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and these kids at Clifton are at such an advantage. They're going to get into the real world and they're going to be very aware and mindful of every single religion, culture,
Mm-hmm.
heritage, and it's going to help them. Because
Yes.
to me, I think a lot of the bullshit we run into these days is that ignorance of people not understanding a culture and being stupid and ignorant and saying stupid, and that's how it pops off.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting you say that. Interesting you say that. Like the parents, how's your time been with the parents, man? I know the parents bring a whole new dynamic versus, and especially now with technology. I mean, they'll sit there and type you a book and look you right in your face, won't say a word to you.
It,
Well,
yes, that does happen. But the way I carry myself and do my business, I try to stay ahead of a lot of things and
mm-hmm.
be upfront and honest. And one of the things that sort of helped me was when I was in Clifton, like after a couple of years, I had a lot of parents. I had the generation of young kids having babies.
Okay.
So they might come into Mr. Covello's classroom. I might have a 25-year-old mom with a 10-year-old kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I always tried to keep the communication very open, honest, and effective. And due to the fact that I can handle myself outside of school, like the parents pick up on it real quick, like, oh, Mr. Covello, he gets it. Like, I'd be in conferences where, you'd get some mom who had some time in the inner city start getting excited. Some teachers don't know how to handle that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I always tried to be upfront and honest. I'm not going to say I haven't had parents that have bad-mouthed me or went online, but like it's like my birthmark. Like if I paid attention to every single comment that was said or made about me, I would have went nuts by the time I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
No,
No,
but
you're right.
I will say this again, and one of the reasons why I am in Clifton, the parents are great.
It's good stuff.
Coaching wise, forget about it. Like, again, I got fired 7 years ago and I'm back now. And I had parents like welcome with open arms. We're glad you're back, coach. Like, you know how good that makes a man feel? You know what I'm saying? Like the kids, like just, like I said, this season was crazy. The parents that were there now, past parents, the Ferraras, the Harringtons, like these people, my first year as a head coach, these people came to my grandfather's wake. You know what I'm saying? Like, my mother passed away, my father passed away. Like some of my players' parents showed up. That's real to me. Those are the people I want to be around.
Yeah.
Because they'll tell you to your face, hey, coach, you know what? You suck today. And I'd be like, I know, I get it. Like, let's move past it,
Mm-hmm.
But upfront and honest. That's all. That's what I love about Clifton, man. The parents are just very down to earth, good people who trust you with their child, and even like they want you to like get them their child's ass in gear.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get. I mean, you go to some different towns. God forbid, you'd be on the front page of the Star Ledger.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, look at Rassiopi in Verona.
Mm-hmm.
The crazy part is that game. Well, I was at Glen Ridge as the defensive coordinator when Sharkey came back and we beat them. And I got to be quite honest with you, Rassiopi wasn't wrong at all. This kid went into the paper and started running his mouth. We're going to do this state championship. And let me tell you something, at Glen Ridge, I was tweaking these kids all week. We had about 13 blitzes. We had a blitz called the Shark. You know what I'm saying? Because he was talking so much.
Mm-hmm.
So, but listen, man, at the end of the day, I got my health.
Yes.
I got my children have their health. I got a roof over my head. I got a beautiful wife. I have a lot to be thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
I never forget. I never forget like those little things. I can't.
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah.
And as much loss as I've been through over the last couple of years, it hurts. I'm not gonna lie, especially like around the holiday times. it gets very tough, but I'll put up my support system
Yes.
between friends and family. Then it's you can't match what I have in terms of like, I mean, yeah, my circle's a little bit smaller than it was 20 years ago,
Hmm.
but there's still those same people that from 20 years ago when I was at my best were right there when I was at my worst.
Mm.
That's
Those are
it.
the ones you want. Yeah.
And these young kids, like I try to explain to my daughters, oh, she's my best friend. I'm like, listen, you're young, you don't. My friends, like I talked about being battle tested before.
Hmm.
My friends and family, like they're battle tested.
Hmm.
We've been there and
Hmm.
through it,
Yeah.
and came out on the other end. And I like to think, I live a great life, man. I live a
Hmm.
great life. Sports had a lot to do with it.
Nah, it sound like it. Sound like it. Nah. Steve, got hit you with some. So I'll put you on the spot a little bit
Go ahead,
before
brother.
go have a little fun. Might take you down memory lane a little bit here.
All right.
So cool. In the car, you prefer the Parkway or the Turnpike?
Parkway.
Being a Verona guy, Bloomfield Ave or Pompton Ave?
Bloomfield Ave.
Speaking of Bloomfield Ave, got any White Castle stories?
I was young, man, back then. Actually, I you know what? I don't remember a lot, but
Okay.
White Castle was the scene where my neighbor's son got killed, Danny O'Callahan, with that one fight.
Ah,
You know,
yeah.
it's crazy. But like after that, Verona passed like the no fast food thing. That place used to get wild at night,
That
dude.
was crazy. Yeah, nah,
It was.
yeah.
I mean, you'd have a lot of Montclair dudes coming up there and meeting Patterson guys like East. Don't forget there was the arcade and then there was the ice cream place too.
Yeah, yeah.
Ray's still over there though. I used to go to Ray's once in a while.
Okay. uh Best game you ever played in your life? On any level. On any level.
Mm.
Was the one that just sticks out?
Probably my last football game of my collegiate career. I had
Hmm.
13 tackles, I believe a fumble recovery,
Hmm.
and the last play against Central Connecticut, I could have had a pick six, but I took taking LT Brown off his feet 20 yards downfield in a cover eight.
Okay.
Like, yeah, like it's, those are things I still think about.
Yeah, nah, good stuff. Verona against Cedar Grove. How was those games?
My sophomore year, you want to hear something crazy? Speaking of Essex County history, I never played a full game against Cedar Grove on Thanksgiving.
No?
My sophomore year when Bobby Diaco and Jimmy Hunt and the Bow brothers were on that team,
Remember the
we
Bowl,
played them,
yeah.
I think the week before when they won on the last play in overtime, when everybody thought Diaco was getting the ball over the top and Jimmy Hunt. That was probably one of the best high school football games. My junior
Hmm.
year, I got hurt on the second play of the game. I fractured my ankle again. And then my senior year, unfortunately, I got kicked out of the playoff game, so I wasn't even allowed on the property at Verona High School.
How'd you get kicked out?
You know what? Because I was being an asshole because I
Yeah.
didn't know how to contain my emotions.
Mm.
And there's that's still the best learning experience of my life because I think that affected me somehow. Actually, a lot with recruiting.
Okay.
Nobody wants a head case.
Yeah.
Butler did a very nice job of getting into my head early and staying into my head. And then I got into my own head, and then that was it. And the thing of that day that was the most heartbreaking was when I got off the bus, my father was waiting for me.
Yeah.
Looked me dead in my eyes. He said, I'm disappointed. Listen, as a kid, I'd rather take a beating than
Hmm.
my old man tell me he's disappointed. And,
Yes.
it's, I look back to that experience and it was a very dark one.
Hmm.
Again, it was something that down the road taught me to manage my emotions much more professionally because if I didn't, how was I gonna prosper? How was I going to survive in the real world?
Navigate all this. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I was always that guy that had to learn the hard way. You know what I'm saying? If there was there was like one streak going, I always had to cut down five, come up another. Like, but again, that's what I needed. because
Yes.
sometimes I needed to see the dark side of things to almost appreciate what the lighter side was like. And I'm not saying it was the best way to do things, but it helped me become a much more controlled, human being. I
Mhm.
go talk to somebody about my anger now, you know, like, but like, but I put on to people like, if you had to take my birthmark for a day or two and see how ignorant this world is and how
Mhm.
and how angry, like there was a lot of moving parts at that point that a lot of people didn't want to take into consideration,
Mhm.
and again, going back to when we grew up, nobody cared about my father. I loved the man to death. My brother, nobody wanted to sit down and talk to me about my feelings after my brother and I just got into a 20-minute fist fight,
You're right. You're right.
No, and now
Yeah.
I find myself in my 40s going to talk to somebody and sitting there being like I wish I had this a while. Like it almost seems like I'm doing things ass backwards in this world. It's like learn the hard way and then do it the right way when you get to the top.
Nah, I hear you. I hear you. But I mean, that's part of growing up, man. We get in a shitload of trouble and this and that. Some of us, and we figure it out later on, man. That's growth, man. That's
Yeah,
that's
oh
how I
yeah,
say it. It's
yeah,
growth.
yeah, definitely, definitely.
It's growth. What it's you switched positions, correct? You was a tailback, and then you played quarterback your senior year, correct?
Yeah, my sophomore year when Cardi was the coach, they should have kept him the coach. I was
That's when they had Rob too, right? Rob was
yeah,
your quarterback.
Robbie Trafford.
Uh,
So my sophomore year, I started at the Z or the X, and then when Scotty Volker came back, I started at safety for the rest of the year as a
okay.
sophomore too.
Hmm.
And then my junior year, I got moved to outside back or running back. And then my senior year is like, hey, you're playing quarterback this year. And I was like, all right. And then don't forget everybody was running the wing T back then. So if like Cap called like waggle and it was a pass, I'm like, that's basically I'm running for 60 yards into the end zone, But it was
Yeah.
it was different. But like in baseball, like my senior year, me and Chris Benequista were the only two guys in 92, 93 graduating year that made first team all county football and baseball. We were
Oh
both
yeah.
baseball. So I was a catcher my whole entire career. So throwing the football to me was, it was fun.
Hmm.
But again, like you look at it's like funny, like guys from Verona list, like, well, if you were in offenses like this now, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what or how it would have been. Like I mean, to me, I'm still that guy that likes a 10-7 football game instead of the 57-42. Like
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
I don't like the offensive side too much, but yeah, so then I was quarterback, punter, kicker, kick returner, extra point, just everything. You name it, I was
Yeah.
everything.
Crazy. One of your teammates actually we befriended each other. I don't know, probably sophomore year. I don't remember, but it was ever since then it was football season. Every Saturday morning we would talk to each other before we took off to our games, whatever. Danny Nagro.
Love and beans, man.
Yeah,
Beans, you still talk to him?
I haven't heard from Danny in years.
Danny Beans was a year. You want to know one of my claims to fame in Verona? When we used to play Major League Baseball in the middle school on Bloomfield Avenue, across from the firehouse there, that baseball field on the right.
Mhm.
When I hit a homer off of Danny Beans up onto the hills, I thought I arrived. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you talk about like I was a natural athlete where it was everything I did came naturally. Danny
Hmm.
Beans was a natural athlete that anything he did came naturally,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And I'll tell you what though, Danny Beans guy's got a heart of gold, man.
Hmm.
I don't see him much anymore.
Okay.
Right now, if honestly, like I like being home,
I hear
quiet,
you. I hear
except
you.
this dog barking upstairs. But
Mhm.
besides that, but yeah, Danny Beans, man.
Yeah, I
Like
hear you,
everybody
man.
from Verona, you're like Danny Nagel. I'm like, oh, Danny Beans. Like everybody from Verona had a nickname.
I know. I hear
My
you.
wife didn't understand it the first couple times. She met like 3 or 4 guys. I'm like, all right, that's Stubby, that's Heavy D, and that's Noodle. She was like, does anybody have? No, I said, no, nobody goes by first names around here. Nobody goes by
Nah,
first names.
yeah. So football or baseball?
Woo. Wow, that's a tough one, bro. Honestly, I honestly wish, because when I went down to Monmouth, George Wood, who was the head baseball coach there,
Hmm.
found that I was coming down for football, and he like reached out. I said, "Would you be interested?" And I knew what he was. I said 100%. But by the time I got down there, he had left, and then they got this new coach, Dean Ehalt, who I don't know. I wasn't one of his guys, so it didn't work out. So I would have liked to have seen how baseball would have played out, but I also like football for the violence and the contact and the physical. And plus football, like one thing about baseball, that's why I got into catching, it got to be a very boring sport.
Okay.
Like if I was catching, it kept my mind busy, like
Yeah, I
those
got you.
so football. I would say probably football.
Yeah. Monmouth or Verona?
Monmouth,
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely.
Is there a game you will want back at any level? Is it just one? I mean, again, I don't from
Yeah.
coaching to playing to everything. I know,
I want that Butler game back. I think about it every night.
yeah.
Yep. I think about it every single night. But again, it's, again, going back to like my mantra with these kids, like, don't take anything for granted. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And I always warn kids about like press, because that year, me and Dave Anico every week, Covello, Anico, Verona, 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 Verona.
Hmm.
And the Star Ledger came that Thursday, and I was very modest and humble. Like I didn't like, and I made sure I asked the guy. I said, "Listen, take a picture with me and the lineman. That's all I want."
Hmm.
I remember opening up the paper on Friday morning. I was like, "Wow!" There was like a huge picture. Yeah, I wasn't even off the bus yet, bro, up there, and they were already getting at me, like comments about my lip, like here, there, and the other thing. And the turning point was on like a fourth or like a third and whatever, I had the sideline. I had the sideline where because once, listen, I was quick. And once I got out, I wasn't getting caught from behind. Kid hits the ball out of my hand. I fumble. I didn't recover from that game. I
Yeah.
didn't recover. But I'll tell you what, after that was over, I became a whole lot mentally tougher. You
Hmm.
know what I'm saying?
Nah, it takes something sometimes to get there.
Yeah, yeah.
Nah,
Listen, I'm not
hmm.
embarrassed about how I got to where I'm at. It's,
Hmm.
I'm sure there's a lot of guys in our age or who came up playing sports, no matter where they're from, saying like, you know what? It's like some people with like sobriety. Some people have to hit that rock bottom once, twice, three times
Hmm.
just to get it straight. Nobody's
Yes.
coming out perfect. Getting to a perfect level. It's just not happening. It's
Hmm.
just not happening. Listen, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what I've done. Um, have I learned from my mistakes in this world? Yeah, 100%. Are there still
Hmm.
people that want to talk about my past and that shit? 1,000%. Those people are no longer in my life.
Yeah.
You know?
Nah,
Yeah, that Butler game probably would be the one.
Butler won. Top five athletes from Verona High. Mhm.
Fazano, you got to throw Calabrese in there. I would put Danny Beans up there.
Okay. That's
Um,
three.
I would say, I don't know, like we're talking, it's tough, man, because there's a lot of guys from like, I
Yeah.
mean, Bucky Hatchett, who was, back in the day. You had Frank Albano and Rondi that went down to, I mean,
Mhm.
you had, Aldiro Venezia, Chiquetto. I mean, shit, Marky D'Angelo, Frankie DiGiacomo. I don't even know if I could give you five.
Well, you gave me more than five just now.
Yeah, right.
You gave me more than. Where's where's Steve Covello on that? You not the best to come out of Verona, man?
uh, I don't know. I it's a trick question, I guess.
You can push your humble pie to the side for a second.
Yes, yes, I'm definitely in the top five. I would say all around athletes.
Hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to think so.
Hmm.
I would like to think just based on raw athleticism, I'll put myself up there.
Yeah.
And I'm
Eh,
not saying, I'm trying to say that with the utmost respect to a lot of the athletes that have come through. I mean, like you talk about like Hall of Fame. Yo, I'm in Clifton's Hall of Fame two different times. I'm
yeah.
not even in Verona's.
Mm,
But again,
yeah.
I don't get caught up in that shit.
I hear you. I hear you.
I don't get caught up in it.
Yeah. You feel
My resume is looking fine right now.
absolutely, absolutely. You feel where you at right now? You've gotten your just due when you talk about life or whatever. Here, you feel like you've gotten your just due.
Yeah, yeah,
Good shit.
yeah. I've always been a very humble person. I
Mhm,
always try to make sure that I'm doing right by me and my loved ones.
mhm,
Um, I've worked very hard to get to where I'm at. I don't know if a lot of people who could go through my last couple of years are coming through out on the other side in a good place.
mhm,
I mean, I know deep in my heart I had to do it, but I think there was my situation, there was something a little bigger that got me to where I'm at,
mhm.
you know.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I look at where I'm at now, and if somebody told me 10 years ago, 20 years ago, I would have told them there's no way.
Mhm,
That's not in my future.
mhm,
Then if 4 years ago, when I was in a bad way, if somebody said you're going to be remarried to a beautiful Italian girl, you're going to have another child, I would have laughed at them. But
mhm,
you look now, and that's why after seeing all the death and the loss, I try all the time I have with my loved ones now, and I try to teach my children this sometimes, but they just don't seem to get it. Is once that time is gone, that shit's gone.
yes.
There's no like my time now with my father and my brother is up at the gates of heaven in East Hanover while I sit on a bench looking at a tombstone. Like that's
Right.
what time is.
Mhm,
It's unfortunate. I will tell you the one thing that does keep me up at night is did every person in my family have to die for me to get here? That's the one thing that sticks in my head. My
mhm.
brother dying, my father dying. Like, listen, losing your brother, your father 6 months apart, that's a lot. You know what
Yes.
I'm saying? And then, but all I know is this, like, I don't, I know how to handle that stuff now. Years ago when it would happen and I'd get crazy, I would start drinking. And I saw very quickly where that got me. It's the worst combination possible. Death and
Mhm.
alcohol is just going to make things 10 times worse. And the
Right.
fact that I'm still here today to tell my story, yeah, I think I got my just due in this world.
Nah, most definitely, most
I
definitely,
appreciate it.
most definitely. What you most proud of?
Um, wow. I would say being a family man,
Yeah.
even though I got divorced with my wife and having my daughters.
Mhm,
Sorry, dude. I can't. That's something that you talk about a beam of pride. That's
mhm,
it's funny. Like when my father was alive, he used to. Everybody knew about my daughter because my father would tell them. Oh, you're Macy's dad. Even
mhm.
like when I was a kid, I would run into people like, oh, you're Frank's son. He talks about you all the time. Like, you know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would say being a father to all my children and a husband.
Mhm,
It's a beautiful. It's a very rewarding. I know sometimes it's like all the guys like, the other day one of the younger coaches like, oh my god, I'm getting engaged. We're like, oh, you idiot! Like, and we're saying it like kidding around because no man's good on his own. You know what I'm saying? It's all you always look at like the man, you look at the woman next to him because that's a majority of the reason why my wife met me at a very bad. I
yeah.
was looking for no relationship when I met her.
Mhm,
And I told her everything. I said, listen, bada boom, bada boom. She goes, everybody has a past.
mhm.
Like, you're not judging me? Like, what's going on? And now, we're married, we have a kid,
Yeah.
and you can't make this shit up, man.
Nah, you can't. You can't. You can't. You know what that? Only thing I ask you make up real quick. If you had a book on your life, what would you call it?
Hmm. I would call it sports and recovery
Okay. Well said.
because it's something that's been on my mind for years now.
Nah.
Because I wish I had in my early teens and late teens, I wish I had an older dude that had been through some shit and came back and told me if I kept doing one thing, where it's going to end up, and if I
Mhm,
did the right thing, where was I going to? I wish I had that because a lot of the older dudes I was around, it was like going towards the party, like
Mhm.
it was nobody's fault. It was just a different time, and
Yeah.
nobody ever forced me to do anything, it was, you know, and I just think too, like my birthmark's a very big part of my story, just because I don't think some people understand how different your life becomes when, and in a crazy way, as much as I hate these masks during the pandemic, I love it because I don't get the stupid comments or the ignorance, like, and
Mhm.
everywhere, like at a
Mhm.
gas station, at the store, like in the, it doesn't matter. But
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it would definitely be about how sports saved my life.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Nah, good stuff. Best part about being Steve Covello.
He never stops fighting.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
stops fighting.
What about that advice at this point in your life? What would you give that 17, 18-year-old senior year Steve Covello? What advice would you give him?
Slow down.
Yeah.
Slow it the fuck down. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's there's and I say that because I just feel everything went by so fast and I never like, now like last week at Rutgers, I took a step back and was like, wow, like, you know, I was just always going,
Mhm.
going, 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 going. And with like the depression and the anxiety and worrying about things that never even happened, but spent hours of my life worrying about it, like, just slow down, slow
Mhm.
it down. I wish I knew how to slow down years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a great question, too. It's a great question.
Slow it down, huh?
100% because that accounts for everything. Like, slow it down with the partying, slow it down with just life in general, just relax.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
sometimes you don't have the ability to do that. It's tough.
Nah, you're right. You're right.
But
Last one here, I'll leave you alone. What's on deck for you?
um, you know what? There's a couple things. My wife, she's funny. Um, I I got a couple things coming up. I'm either going to start another master's. So,
Okay.
I mean, I already have my one master's in administration supervision. I was either going to start that other master's,
Hmm.
um, or I this past week I applied for a couple of adjunct professors around like some of the local colleges.
Hmm.
Um, and honestly, it not much, man, not much. I mean, we got the baby. The
Yes.
pandemic's still going crazy. So like the best part of my day is like right now. I'll go upstairs, we'll watch a little football, the dog, my wife, the baby,
Mhm.
like all stuff that 4 years ago I would have seen on Hallmark and said that's not reality. Like now
Hey,
my
I
reality.
hear you. Interesting. You have you done some adjunct before?
No, no.
It's
And
a
I mean,
good it's a good gig. I'm coming off actually I'm wrapping up 3 classes next
really,
couple of weeks. Yeah, at a couple of schools here. So nah, it's a good feeling, man, just to turn around and similar to you talked about grades and all that stuff. Man, I was rock bottom and probably the bottom 10 of my class, man. So to turn around and be in front of some kids at a university or college, man, like I said, it's just like, damn, I ain't
awesome.
supposed to be here. Yeah, so
Well,
I get it. I get it when you were saying all that. I get it,
I
all of that.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah. But no, go ahead, throw your hat in. It's a good time, man. It's a good time. It's a good time. And also too, and it's interesting you just talking about you talking about adjunct, you talk about learning. It sounds like you've learned a lot throughout your time on this earth here, Steve,
Yeah.
man. And I just want to just say this obviously the competitor, the athlete, I got to see that early on, but just to hear a little bit stuff that I had no clue about, like I said, is humbling and it's worthwhile. Like I said, well, I don't care who hears this. I don't care if it was just me hearing it, but I could take this and run with it. Be like, you know what? Like I said, I do this, for a lot of reasons. One of them, again, you just never know what somebody's going through or who's watching what, man. Like, get herself up, get himself up, and like my life ain't over with. And like you said, took some bumps in the road, backed in the corner. Somehow you jabbed your way up out of there. You in
Yeah,
this ring still fighting, man. So,
yeah.
like I said, you being officially you, Steve, like I said, helps me, continues me to help me continue to be officially If here,
I
man.
appreciate that, brother.
I
Thank you.
appreciate this, man. I really do. And I was looking forward to it. It was like as soon as I
Yeah,
was
me
got as
too.
soon as you hit me back, I was like, good. We good. It's just a matter of just getting the time to do it.
Yeah, no, definitely. Listen, I really appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. And then, listen, I'm always up for another conversation in
Yes.
a couple months. Now, where does this get posted on YouTube?
Yeah, I throw them on YouTube website soon as, but you first to get it and make sure you go with it before I let
Oh,
it fly.
listen, I trust you. You
Okay,
know what I'm saying?
okay.
Listen, if it was some guy that just random like Ibn Webb, like I've known, you know what I'm saying? I know who you
Yeah,
are. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? I don't have to worry about that.
Nah, Steve, I appreciate it, man. But be well, enjoy them girls.
Yes,
Like you
you too,
said,
brother.
this
Listen,
goes by
have
fast.
a great Christmas and a great New Year. We will talk soon, pal.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, Steve.
You too, brother.
All right, peace. All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Got to see him compete. Then get him to see him compete with everything else he had going on in his life, and like anything, he conquered it. It's just great to hear these stories and where Steve is at in his life here and doing well and still not remembering the past, which helps him do even more better today here. So Steve, man, good talking to you. Go on, slide on out on that. So with that being said, I put my hand over my heart. That means I feel you. Yeah.